Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, and these are the stories making headlines across the continent. A rare united front in DR Congo politics. Opposition leaders all agree on one thing: no changes to the constitution, as the ruling party is working towards a constitutional reform that could extend President Tshisekedi's term in power. Uganda opposition leader Kizza Besigye disappears in Kenya, only to reappear in Kampala before a military court for illegal possession of firearms. And also in our edition, 500 people from the African diaspora have now become new Ghanaian citizens. The year of return continues 5 years after Ghana's call to settle and invest in the continent. Political enemies united as one in the DRC. Moise Katumbi, Joseph Kabila and Martin Fayulu all came together to denounce President Felix Tshisekedi's plan to change the constitution. With other members of the opposition, they signed a manifesto that says no to a third mandate or lifetime presidency, and they called on to fight the move. Emmett Livingston in Kinshasa has more.
Officials from every major Congolese opposition party gathered in the capital Kinshasa on Wednesday, vowing to fight a government plan to change the constitution every step of the way. It marked the strongest pushback yet to President Tshisekedi's proposal to change or revise the constitution. The president argues that the current text, which was drafted in 2006, was crafted by foreigners and doesn't match Congolese needs. Last week, Tshisekedi also told supporters that the constitution doesn't allow Congo full sovereignty over its territory. But opposition leaders are completely unconvinced. They view the scheme as a ploy by Tshisekedi to bypass a two-term limit in office. On Wednesday, they did not mince words.
Mr. Tshisekedi is seeking to change the constitution in order to usurp power and run for a third term in office, in violation of Article 70, which limits the number of presidential terms to 2, and Article 220, which stipulates, among other things, that the number and length of terms in office of the President of the Republic may not be the subject of any constitutional revision. This act constitutes a coup and exposes the perpetrator to prosecution for high treason.
All the major opposition parties signed the statement, including the party of former President Joseph Kabila. Kabila's involvement is significant and also ironic. When he was in power, Kabila also tried to change the constitution, provoking widespread opposition. Many of his former ministers were in the room when the statement was signed on Wednesday. Since handing over power to Tshisekedi in 2018, Kabila has maintained a low profile, but he is still politically powerful. Tshisekedi has said that opposition accusations that he plans to stay in office are unfounded, and accused opposition politicians of being puppets of foreign countries.
The duties of the Prime Minister are terminated. Mali's Prime Minister Choguel Maïga and the government have been sacked. Maïga, who was appointed by the military in 2021, had recently publicly condemned the lack of clarity regarding the end of the transition to civilian rule. He said the confusion could pose serious challenges and the risk of going backwards. Under the law now, Maïga's successor would have to form a new government in consultation with interim President Assimi Goïta. And in other news from Mali, he's said to have led a reign of terror in Timbuktu. The former head of the Islamic police in Mali's historic city was sentenced to 10 years in prison for war crimes by the International Criminal Court. Al-Hassan Ak-Abdulaziz Ak-Mohamed Ak-Mahmoud was found guilty in June this year of torture, overseeing public amputations by machete and the brutal floggings of residents, including children.
And remains present in the minds.
Longtime Uganda opposition leader Kizza Besigye disappeared this past weekend in neighboring Kenya. His family described it as a kidnapping and demanded accountability from Ugandan authorities. Besigye finally reappeared this Wednesday in Kampala, where he was brought before a military court, accused of charges including illegal possession of firearms. The opponent, who has been arrested multiple times since the early 2000s, condemned the trial as unlawful. More details from the region, Clément Roma.
Ugandan opposition leader Kizza Besigye reappeared this Wednesday in Kampala, handcuffed and escorted by soldiers as he faced judges in a military court. Besigye, who has challenged President Yoweri Museveni in the last 4 elections, is accused, along with his close ally, of traveling to Switzerland, Greece and Kenya to secure logistical support to prejudice the security of the defense forces. He's also charged with illegal possession of 2 pistols. The 2 men were attending the launch of a Kenyan opposition figure's book in Nairobi this past weekend when they disappeared on Saturday, only to resurface in detention back in Uganda. Besigye's family and party have denounced what they call an abduction. Last July, 36 members of his party, the Forum for Democratic Change, were also arrested in Kenya and deported to Uganda, where they are awaiting trial on terrorism charges. Released on bail, they claim their innocence and allege they were tortured in detention. Uganda's main opposition figure, Bobi Wine, has criticized Kenya for violating extradition laws.
And of course, reaction for human rights groups. Raymond Nyeris from Kenya National Commission on Human Rights says that rising cases of adoptions are an affront to the values his country ascribes to.
We condemn any form of abduction of those people who seek asylum in our country. Kenya is a country that respects its obligations, and we want to call upon the government not to deport those people who are seeking asylum in our country. They should abide by international law that requires them to respect the law.
And staying in Kenya, where things are tense between the Catholic Church and Kenyan President, William Ruto offered a donation of $40,000, but it was rejected. Several bishops had criticized William Ruto's policies, especially when he tried to impose new taxes. The money was to be spent towards the buildings of a priest house. The Catholic Archbishop of Nairobi, Philip Anyolo, said the cash would be returned over ethical concern.
For providing leadership in this area.
Ghana has welcomed more than 500 persons from the diaspora to take up Ghanaian citizenship. This batch are the third since 2019, when Ghana launched its Year of Return program, aiming to open the country up to African Americans and descendants of slaves taken out of Africa during the slave trade who want to return. Justice Baidu.
The colorful event heralding the granting of citizenship to these persons happened in the capital, Accra. Ghana has been repositioning itself to be a destination of choice for all persons of African descent in the diaspora looking to come back home to the continent since 2019, when it launched the Year of Return program. Through this initiative, the country has actively engaged persons in the African diaspora in the areas of business, trade and cultural exchange. President Akufo-Addo, speaking at the event, said this marked a significant milestone in reconnecting all persons within the African diaspora to their ancestral roots.
Today we embrace you as our own, as fellow citizens of this nation, as brothers and sisters, and as part of the Ghanaian family. And today, as we grant you citizenship, we welcome you not just as visitors, but as Ghanaians, fully and forever.
Ghana has now launched the Beyond the Return initiative, which is expected to woo more persons of African descent to invest back, not just in Ghana, but in other countries across the continent.
We want to thank the Almighty for having blessed us with a leader who had a vision called the return. And when that return turned into a splendid, phenomenal affair, he went beyond. And we're in the middle of that beyond.
For many of those who are taking up citizenship through this process, it is the beginning of a spiritual journey that they say would help them heal from the years of living in what they say is the bondage that the slave trade and its legacies leave on their shoulders.
Now to the outskirts of the Mauritanian capital, Nouakchott, where getting water has become a daily struggle, with most houses not equipped with running water. They must rely on traveling vendors or go fill up containers at some of the rare taps and containers installed by the government. But there's barely enough water to meet the everyday needs of residents. Laurent Bestécher has the story.
In the Nouakchott suburb of Tarheel, residents anxiously wait for the passage of a small donkey cart filled to the brink with yellow containers. Every day, this traveling water vendor delivers the precious liquid to dozens of households, providing a crucial service.
I don't have my own tap. I don't have my own barrels. So I need to use jerry cans and pay someone to bring them to my house. But when it's really hot, even 100 cans aren't enough.
Water distribution is a major challenge in Mauritania, a country located in the Sahara Desert, where temperatures regularly exceed 40 degrees Celsius. Despite the needs, over 22% of the population doesn't have access to clean water, one of the highest rates in the world. Yet in Tarheel, water was supposed to flow. Created in 2009 to help regulate informal housing in Nouakchott, the neighborhood was meant to be equipped with brand new infrastructure, but construction efforts have been at a standstill for years.
A few years ago, someone came to install water pipes, but they were empty. They buried them over there, and that's it. We still don't have any running water.
The Mauritanian capital largely relies on water sources located along the Senegal River, some 200 kilometers away. A distance that's stretching the country's rundown infrastructure thin. Some NGOs estimate around 40% of Mauritania's water is lost due to undetected leaks.
And now to Senegal, where the Dakar Biennale of Contemporary African Art is still happening. And running along is this original photo exhibition. It focuses on people living with HIV in Guinea and aims to demystify the taboo surrounding the disease. Marie Sagno, HIV positive, is one of the exhibition's photo models, and she spoke to our Dakar correspondent, Elie Mandau.
I wanted to participate to the show to encourage the population and to tell them that HIV is not inevitable. We can live with the illness, we can carry out projects while following the treatments. And then you can live normally. HIV is a disease like any other, like diabetes or when you have hypertension. You just have to follow your treatment.
And this concludes our edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to France 24.